So one of the things production people do is artificial lift. So I'm going to give some examples of that. One of the most common things that people do is to run a sucker rod pump. So you hear people talk about run-on pump. I don't know why they don't say run-in pump, because the pump is always in the well, and the sucker rod pump, the pump itself is going to be down at the bottom of the well, and is connected back by a series of these sucker rods, which are a rod about yay big. It'll be a steel rod connected together end to end to end, all the way back up to the top of the well. And the sucker rods are going to be inside of a pipe about yay big, a piece of tubing, that is also pipes connected together end to end to end until they reach back to the top of the well. Now the pipes are about 40 feet long because they've got to fit on a semi-truck to get them out to the site, and the sucker rods usually are a little shorter than that, but they're also connected together one after another to get to the bottom of the well. Generally, when we go to run the tubing and the sucker rods in, we'll use a smaller, less expensive rig than the drilling rig or the fracking rig that was out there. If the well has been fractured by the plug and perf method, then you'll have bridge plugs you got to pull out before you can put the pump in, and then you might also have to circulate out sand from the frac operations before you can run your rods, tubing, and pump in the well. Actually, people say run the rods and the tubing and pump, but you're going to have to run the tubing and then the rods and the pump afterwards. There's two different kinds of sucker rod pumps. Some of them you run the tubing, you run the pump, then the tubing, and then the rods, and some of them you run the tubing, and then the pump hooks onto the end of the rods and you run it inside the tubing. So it might be the pump is with the tubing, it might be that it's with the rods. So just kind of varies. Okay, so you see different kinds of pumping units out there. If you see a little bitty one, it's because the well is probably shallow or it's not moving a lot of fluid. If you see a great big one, it's probably because the well is deeper, might be moving a lot more fluid, so you need a lot more horsepower. Might have bigger diameter rods, which are heavier and requires more leverage to lift them. Or it might be a horizontal, and they may have the rods going down around the corner and have more drag on the rods. Generally, the bigger ones will have a bigger motor. The motor will be back here. Then will the smaller one? Yeah, okay, so there's a couple things to know about pump jacks or pumping units, as they call them. Artificial lift, we need artificial lift because although there's always going to be some pressure pushing the fluid in the reservoir over to the well, the pressure will become depleted as time goes on, and it may not push the oil and the gas and water all the way up to the surface. So oil wells might not flow all the way to the surface. The oil and water might come part way up the well and then stop, and that's why we've got to lower the pump down the well to get the oil and bring it all the way up to the surface. Gas wells generally will flow all the way to the surface. If the gas doesn't come up to the surface by itself, there's not really such a thing. It's not common anyway to have a downhole compressor. We can get a downhole pump, but a downhole compressor that's economic and common, I sure don't know about it. Gas wells will flow all the way to the surface, but they might display a behavior we call loading up with fluid. So water might build up in the well, and just like the water or drilling mud will control the well during drilling, which is a desirable behavior during drilling, water might build up in the well and push the gas down, which is undesirable once we're producing. Once we're trying to produce the well, we do not want fluid building up in the well and pushing the gas down and keeping it in the formation. So this is what people mean when they say that the well has loaded up with fluid. They mean that water has built up in the well and is suppressing the gas and keeping it in the formation, keeping it from flowing. So gas lift and plunger lift are a couple of options for getting your gas wells unloaded from having fluid in them. Okay, so some popular artificial lift methods are pumping units and rod pumps. So the unit that you see out alongside the road with the pump jack going up and down. Other methods, gas lift, where we compress gas, pump it down the well, and use it to lift liquids that we're trying to get out of the well. Electrical submersible pumps, which are a pump that you run down to the bottom of the well, and you run a long electrical cable down to it, and then you just run it like any other electrical pump, except they're very high tech. The pumps are also very, very long, and skinny because they've got to fit down the well. So they're this really long, skinny thing. If you saw them and you didn't know any better, you'd think they were a long, skinny piece of pipe. They just look like a piece of pipe. Everything they put down the well looks like a piece of pipe, you know, for some reason. And plunger lift is a very clever way of removing liquids from gas wells. So they're pretty economical to run, but they're kind of tricky. Yeah. So this thing is the famous pumping unit, or pump jack, or nodding donkey, the British call them. And they've got several different parts. So there's actually more parts than this, but these are some of the more important ones. Here's our horse head, and people actually call it that. The bridle, these cables that hang off the end here are called the bridle. The polished rod is this rod here. The very topmost rod is going to be chrome plated because it's got to fit through this stuffing box, and it slides back and forth in that stuffing box, which has got rubbers in it. So it's chrome plated, so it will seal against those rubbers but not tear them up. So if it were not chrome plated, then it would tear that rubber stuffing box. The stuffing box, which seals it and keeps the oil from splooshing out around the rod. The well head, so here's the well proper, so the well goes into the ground right there. Generally, you're going to have a well sign. These are required by the state, and they're useful for figuring out where you are. If you're lost in the oil field, you drive around, you find some well, and figure out which one you're at. They generally have a section, township, and range on it. These more useful in the days before GPS and cell phones, but they can still be useful if you get out of range of the GPS, or your cell phone doesn't know where you're at. Electric motor. The electric motor will be at the back, and here's the belt going up to the gearbox. You'll have a gearbox here, which is turning the whole mechanism. The on-off switch will be at the back. In this case, this one's got an antenna, which communicates data back to the office, and counterweights. So your rods are hanging down into the well, and they're very heavy. So on the back of it, you've got these counterweights, which are these funny looking things here that kind of give it a seesaw action and balance that weight of the rods and keep it from, you know, if it didn't have that counterweight to balance it, it'd be like the motor would be having to pull the total weight of those rods back up. So this electric motor would have to work a lot harder if you didn't have the counterweights to give you that seesaw effect. Okay, so your rod pump is going to be down near the bottom of the well, because that's where you're trying to bring the oil up from. It's also going to bring up some water with it, which is just a side effect we have. We don't necessarily like it, but have to bring the water up along with it. And the rod pump is going to convert this up and down motion of your rods into a fluid motion, bringing your fluid up the hole. And the way it works, you've got a couple of these ball and seat mechanisms. You've got this seat, which is shaped like a donut. It's got a hole all the way through it, and a couple of balls like this. So here's one of them, and here's the other one. And then you've got also this black thing here, which is our plunger. And the plunger itself is connected to the rods and goes up and down and up and down. So this is a so-called upstroke where the rods are going up, and this is our downstroke where the rods are coming down. When the rods are going up, this traveling valve is going to go up, and that donut, so this purple donut mechanism is going to go up. It's going to catch hold of its ball, and it's going to pull that ball up. And this plunger is actually, it's shown in cross section, but if you can imagine, it's kind of a round, shaped kind of like a jar or like a cylinder. And so it's pulling a cylinder of fluid up and pushing it all the way up to the top of the well and out the top. So this ball is carrying the weight of all that fluid up. Meanwhile, since this ball and its seat are going up, it's kind of leaving a void space in here. There's trying to be a vacuum in here. Well, nature abhors a vacuum, so it will pull this ball up off of its seat, and some oil will come in here to try and fill up that vacuum because it doesn't like it. So it's going to pull this guy up and leave a vacuum. Well, it'll suck this oil in here past that ball. Then, when this plunger starts coming back down, because the rods are coming back down, there's this oil in here. Well, when this one tries to come back down, is forcing that oil down. Well, this ball will seat because the oil is coming down on top of it. And so it'll seat, and it'll, because this oil is in here, it'll push this ball up off of its seat, and the oil will go up inside of this plunger and fill it up again. And so then when it lifts back up, it's full of oil again, and it'll lift it up and it'll carry that volume of oil up. And so what it does, the plunger comes down and it just grabs the volume of oil, it pulls it up, and then it comes down and grabs another one and it pulls it up over and over and over all day long. So that's how that thing works. It's just these two ball and seat mechanisms. The one that travels up and down, and the one that sits there on the bottom, that is the standing valve, that is stationary.